We are live. Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the 63rd edition of ClariTea Chat. Today we have with us Prosenjit Sengupta, Executive Vice President, Chief Digital Officer and member of Executive Council of Thermax Group. Thermax is a leading conglomerate that operates in 88 countries for providing sustainable solutions in energy and environment. Hi Prosenjit, welcome to the session.
Cheers.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm in an offsite drinking tea from a paper cup today for a change. But thanks Prosenjit for joining us. So a bit about Prosenjit, guys. Prosenjit is a graduate of electronics engineering from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and also an alumni of Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. Before joining Thermax 4 years ago, he was heading the Volkswagen Group CIO role and digitalization initiative for India, as well as the regional CIO role. He had a 14-year stint with Tata Motors, where he successfully transitioned from a business manager to technology. We worked together for 7 years, where he was my right-hand man for CRM and then for enterprise programs. I must confess that I pushed him hard while building up CRM in Tata Motors, as well as grooming him to be my successor for CRM. It was like, I found a successor. I'm like, I take over fast. It was only when we were doing our prep chat that he told me that he missed seeing his daughter grow up during that period. But I'm so relieved that, afterwards he has sort of learned a big lesson from that, and he has maintained a good balance between work and family. And that's one more reason for me to think that, good. There's something good that happened to Prosenjit outside of work, by not having me as his boss. Okay, so apart from this, how to balance work and family, we'll discuss how to accept and ride out life surprises to leapfrog, successful executions with complex, informal, global hierarchies that he'll talk about his experiences from Volkswagen, and driving big ticket transformations through collaborations and partnerships. So, as I mentioned, his philosophy is that we don't really have to give up family for work and vice versa. It's all about prioritization and discipline. And yes, Prosenjit is one of the most disciplined people that I have known in my times. Well, we will know more about it as we go through. We'll end the chat with a rapid fire round to bring out the personal side of Prosenjit, and then a revenge question to me. It's actually called a reverse question, but I make it a revenge question because I'll be asking most of the questions to Prasenjit so he can take a revenge. Okay, so let's hear an inspirational story of a business manager turned CIO. We'll get to hear in detail, how how his career was shaped, what philosophies and styles he used. So, Prasenjit, before we start talking of serious things, let's get some energy going up. Let me ask you a icebreaker question. Okay, you said no to a technology role once, and you were heard. But the second time you said no, but you were overruled. But it ended up for you building a spectacular career out of it. So tell us about that first and second experience.
No, I joined Tata Motors in '98, and by 2000, I got this opportunity. In fact, I was looking for a transfer out to Delhi, my home place, but I was given an option to move to the headquarters, the spare parts headquarters in Mumbai, specifically Thane. And immediately after moving there in 2000, I think within 6 months or so, I was given this responsibility. I mean, the team, even my manager, he came back. He said that your name has been nominated to lead this entire SAP implementation across spare parts. So it was happening across Tata Motors, and for spare parts, my name was chosen. I said, no ways. I never want to get into IT. I am not a technology guy. I never want to get into technology for life. So I think thankfully my managers, everybody around me, they listened to me, and I could live life peacefully as business, procurement, doing other things for the next 5, 6 years. In 2005, when I cleared my fast track selection in Tata Motors, again after a year of training, induction, projects, all that, again the time came for selection. That time I was trying my best to get into the international business sales and marketing side because that was really going very strong at that point in time in Tata Motors. Again, HR came back. They said, we have done a psychometric analysis, we have done many other tests, and you need to go to this new project which is happening, which is called CRM and DMS. I said, what is CRM and DMS and what is the work around it? They said it is about implementing IT technology systems across the dealerships. So that was, again, I thought that it is my karma coming back again and again to me. And so that was something that I could not say no out, and that was how I actually moved into CRM. That was my first brush with IT, with technology. That was, I think, almost like how many, almost like 8 years of my working in Tata Motors. But the CRM culture was very good. It was more like a flat hierarchy. It was no hierarchy. It was kind of a flat structure. A lot of partner-driven work. There were people from so many different walks of life. There were people who were like into business, people like me who had come there to drive it. So it was a good mixture of people from business, people from technology, newcomers, old timers, and I think that was a very very good learning experience. Thankful to people like Jagdish, KRS, other people from partners, Manoj Jain and others, I mean CR or CFO, who really gave that push, that nudge, and gave me that space to grow in IT and technology. And really, and that is what I have been now doing for the rest 16, 17 years now since.
So, Prasenjit, I think we share a little bit of that karma thing because, in 10 years before you in '95, when Tata Motors was looking for a lot of people to drive that Y2K and other stuff, they ran an aptitude test for all the GTs. And I think most of us, 90% of us, attended that aptitude test because IT was a big area. And I was one of those guys who said, "Nahi, mujhe to pana chalana hai. I want to drive. I want to use spanners and hammers, and I'm a mechanical engineer. And who will do coding? I mean, it's a boring work and all that." And I did not sit for that aptitude test. But I think it's about a little bit like destiny also that you land up where you have to land up. And 7 years later, I landed up in CRM, and then a sort of backdoor entry into IT, you can say. But yeah, similar stories. So um, um, let's go back to, I can see some audience joining here. Um, in our audience, we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned technology industry leaders. All of us know that technology is necessary but not sufficient to drive business performance. The guests on Clarity Chat, like Prosenjit and many others, they have built that bridge between the necessity of technology and what else is needed to make it sufficient, with their art of managing technologies. So Clarity Chat is building the bridge between their learnings and all of you who are trying to make an impact with technology. So thank you all for joining us for the last 1 year and more, and encouraging us with your interactions, questions. So let us see who all are here. But before I do that, may I request our audience to share their names and where they are joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube. So let's see who all have joined us. I can see Bipin Joshi, dear colleague, uh, listening to us. He's probably going to give us some, pass and fail marks on, how much of truth we are speaking, I think. We have Suraj Jadhav, looking both of you. I'm taken back 10 years, remembering the great times we spent together at Tata Motors. Absolutely, absolutely, Suraj. And yeah, we have S Punjabi, the first user we ever created, Sunil Punjabi. So, Sunil, thanks for joining us, and I hope you're doing well. And we also have Snehanshu Jaina from Bangalore. We have Jay Shete, delivery manager, IT in Eton. And yes, we have another dear old colleague, Dr. Samir Yerpure. Hey, thank you, doctor, for joining us. And we also have Rahul Kohli. Guys, keep it coming. And let me move back um, to grilling Prasenjit here. So, Prasenjit, let's begin with a quick recap of your childhood right up to your first job.
Okay, so I was born and brought up in Delhi. I did my schooling there, but again I had to move out. So spent 17 years in Delhi and then moved out of Delhi. 4 years in Kolhapur in Kolhapur Institute of Technology, Shivaji University, doing my engineering. Then I got selected as a GT in Tata Motors, preferred Jamshedpur. Spent 2 years in Jamshedpur. 1 year out of that was part of the GT induction training. Um, then 1 year of work in spare parts. Story also behind that, joining spare parts there. Then I was, as I said, I was shifted to Mumbai. When I was doing there, I decided that I had to upskill myself, and that is how I joined Jamnalal Bajaj as a part-time MBA. So completed my MBA during my doing my job responsibilities. Um, I think during my tenure in school, in college, most of the places I've held certain responsibilities. I think, and to begin with, I was a very shy person in terms of whether it was for, I mean, a stage fright, you can say, or talking in public, debates, declamations. I mean, nothing. I mean, all these things were completely alien to me. But I must say that I got so good mentors across. It's really starting from junior school, middle school, who helped me get onto the stage, get onto debates, get onto declamations, get onto quizzes. And I think I actually owe a lot of that to my teachers who shaped me, whether it was coming out in the open, whether it was the extempore, whether it is basically the front, the public speaking, the social side of me got developed because of that. And I think it really developed to such an extent. I started representing my school, represented my college, uh, became the school prefect, and that was for middle school. Many other things happened. So I think it was all a part of the learning process, I would say. So that was my childhood, growing up in Delhi, and then after 17 years, never going back to Delhi, just moving around different cities, and
Got it,
that is
got
how
it.
I landed up the college. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think one important thing that you mentioned was like being a shy person, and your teachers bringing out the latent side of you, which is like a good speaker and a debater, and you overcoming your hesitation with their help. Yeah, I mean, to all the people who are listening to us, there are many of them out there. There are many people like Prasenjit out there, like who are looking for that nudge and that encouragement, to bring out their potential. And like as we as leaders, like are supposed to play that part. Um, in fact, I just came. I was quite a bit delayed for my ClariTea Chat. I was just speaking to a group of about 30 odd people, small organization. I'm mentoring them. And yeah, this was my message to them as well, that I'm here to mentor you guys, and once you grow big, you will be there to mentor other people. So let's keep that cycle on. And Prasenjit, I know you've been a mentor to many people afterwards. So Prasenjit, let's move on to an overview of your career. You worked in a few companies, but I think you have played many roles. So, just take us through your roles and maybe one highlight of each of your roles, just to kind of give us a mind map of how your career evolved and how you evolved as a leader.
So, as I mentioned, Jagdish, I joined Tata Motors in 1998 in Jamshedpur. So, the first 2 years was spent in Jamshedpur. It was primarily induction and then spare parts, understanding the business. I think really the work started when I moved to Bombay in 2000. Um, 2000 to 2004, I was in spare parts, even in spare parts. And in fact, one thing I will be in my tenure of 14 years in Tata Motors, whether it was spare parts, whether it was market research after that, whether it was CRM and DMS, I have actually really spent so much of time in different business areas. I think that has been the hallmark and the foundation of my success. If I have really been able to deliver anything in IT, it has really been because of the solid business background that Tata Motors helped me develop. So I've been in sales, selling vehicles. I've been in marketing, designing, pricing, and other functions of marketing. I've been in procurement. I have been in market research. I have been in IT during the CRM and DMS project. So I think that was really the hallmark of the first 14 years in Tata Motors. In Volkswagen, when I joined as the CIO, and my period 2012 to 2018, those 6 years, there again I would say that there were maybe three roles that I played. One was the CIO of the group sales organization, which consisted of the five brands Volkswagen, Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, and Skoda. The second part was when there was an added on responsibility for the factories. So that was additional manufacturing angle coming into my role. And the third one was when also I started handling the governance and the digitalization and the IT part of the APAC region, which basically really opened up the horizon to the global markets. So the entire Southeast Asia, Middle East, and of course a good and strong collaboration with headquarters in Germany. So I would say that was the hallmark of the globalization perspective, was the hallmark of my second stint. The third stint in Thermax so far as the CDO and also the executive committee member, it is not only about operations, but I would say it is more about digital culture advisory. In fact, in Thermax, I have also got a exposure really into the external world. So, for example, I am uh, part of the Nasscom, where I actually also work very closely with a lot of startups, understanding what they are doing, seeing a part of the manufacturing council. So you see, there has been a lot of external connect also, which has got built up to some extent in my Volkswagen period, but to a lot of more extent in Thermax. So I would say that these three organizations have also really helped in adding those perspectives of business, stakeholder management, IT, globalization, and now the internal and the external connect that is happening.
Awesome. So I think what I gathered was first tenure is all about learning business. Right from your selling vehicles to spares pricing, procurement, market research, and then CRM, which give you a complete, I would say, overview of dealer operations right from grounds up. And then going to Volkswagen, learning the global complexities, executing at a regional level, plants, NSCs, etc., etc., and then finally moving to a senior management role, part of the executive council, driving culture, being an advisor to the senior management and board, and then a much greater external world interface in terms of Nasscom. And I'm sure a lot of work in the strategy as well, driving the digital strategy for Thermax, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah. So Prasenjit, while our icebreaker was about it, but I think when we were talking earlier, I realized that that your career has been defined by a lot of these choices that you didn't like, but you still embraced or you still took them as challenges. So like if we do if if we do what we like, then it's like no brainer, right? But if we do something that we don't like, we call it a challenge. So tell us about the choices you didn't like but took up the challenge and made a success out of it.
Yes, I think it has been very rich experience of what I wanted and what I got. So I think I'll start right from the beginning. So when I got into Tata Motors, I got into this program called Program A, which was all about the factory and manufacturing. And I think very soon during the interactions, etc., people figured out. They said, "What are you doing in Program A? You should be in Program B." And Program B was all about the front end customers, dealers, the front end facing. But anyways, the first year was induction. After first year, when the time came for placements, my last induction or the last work experience during the induction period was with a gentleman in the procurement area of Cebu, which is the construction equipment business unit of Tata Motors, as it was known at that point in time. And it was all settled. He said that you are going to join me. I said, fine. He said, there's going to be an interview and you need to say that you are going to join, you want to join Cebu. I said, perfectly fine. Went to the interview the next day. In the panel, they said that if you want to join Cebu, there's only one work available for you, and that is in manufacturing. I said, I don't want to do manufacturing. And then they said that then there is no other option for us. You can't be in Cebu, go to Abu. And Abu was automotive business unit. That was the other arm of Tata Motors. So that was that my career started like that. I wanted to go in one direction, I got into another direction. So that was about getting into spare parts of automotive business unit. By the way, which defined my entire career, being in the automotive field. Then I think after a year and a half, since I was from Delhi, my parents were from Delhi, and I was also looking for some front end work, etc. I was trying for a position in Delhi, if it is possible. There was a regional office of spare parts. The entire discussion had happened with the regional manager, with my people, with HR, with everybody in Jamshedpur. I think just 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I had to move to Delhi, I get a circular saying that you are required to join spare parts headquarters in Thane, that is Mumbai. So the entire planning, entire everything went for a fart, and then I moved to Mumbai. But I think at any no point in my mind did it come that I want to leave Tata Motors or I want to leave spare parts. So that was how when I came to spare parts, I was working there. That was another thing. Then I think I just told you that in 2006, when there was another round of placements to be done after the fast track selection, I wanted to get into international business. I ended up in CRM. I ended up in IT. So ultimately, my career was defined by two choices that I did not want to make. One was getting into automotive, and the second one was getting into IT technology or digitalization. And the third one, I don't know, maybe to a smaller extent, was being in the headquarters, being in Bombay, being on the western side of the country, never went back to Delhi.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like some of these things resonate so much with the with my own experience also. Of course, I told you about like not going for IT in that 95 selection process. But the same thing with Mumbai. I mean, I came for my final interview of Tata Motors to Mumbai, and I was like so scared of the crowds. I remember like going in that 4 to 2 VT, that direction at around 5 or 6 o'clock after our interviews got over, and it was so scary to see the masses of people. I was like, I'm not coming to Mumbai. And when I got the opportunity, I fought with Mr. Ravikant, that, make me an area manager anywhere in, India, be it Northeast or North South, anywhere. But I don't want to come to Mumbai. But then I got Mumbai, and I think the rest is history. But, I think the important thing is not to bail out, is to take it up as a challenge, try to make it work. If it doesn't work, you always have the option to bail out. But if it works, it can become a spectacular success like it did for you, right?
No, absolutely. I think, Jagdish, one thing that I was clear right from the beginning is whatever I am given, I'll try to do full justice to it. If it does not work out, it does not work out. But I would also want to say that I really, as I mentioned, in school, I got good mentors. Even in office, in my career, I got good mentors. And maybe that was how choices that I did not think were important or good for me, but maybe there were those latent um I don't know, maybe knowledge, maybe skills available within me that others saw that I could not see myself, was how my career was shaped. Um, so I am a very big fan of what leadership is, how leadership can be nurtured and built, and what is the role of mentors in developing and nurturing leadership.
No, absolutely, Prasenjit, and this is a very, very important point that you brought out. That many a times, when things are happening to you which you don't like, but there are seniors pushing you into those areas, they are probably seeing a part of you that you don't know yourself, right? Like for example, I mean, in my own story, what I just narrated, um, I had, Mr. Ravikant heard about all the work that I had done in customer service in Andhra Pradesh, in Cebu, and he probably thought that I'm the right guy to drive the workshop profitability and the service transformation areas in a truck and bus context. I mean, I didn't know that. But I think he saw that promise, and he insisted, and he pushed me into doing that. And that became a very big success. And, what you said is very important. As I look back, I am thinking, oh my God, yeah, maybe he saw it in me that I can make a big success out of it, which with my limited view, with my limited experience, with my limited knowledge, I could not see. So everyone in our audience, a very big lesson here, that when you're pushed by your seniors into doing things that you don't like, please remember that how they are looking at the bigger picture and your potential and other things. Sometimes maybe you cannot see it. I mean, within your limited capability, you may not be able to see it. So just trust it, go with it, try to make it work. If it doesn't work, you always have options. But if it works, it can be, if what they think is right about your potential, this can be you can make a big success out of it. No, thanks for that discussion, Prasenjit. So we are at something like halfway mark, so let me go back to our audience. Okay, and let me start from where we left off. So we have Rahul Kohli from Delhi joining us. We have Karthikeyan from Bangalore. We have Kishore. Thank you, Kishore, for your wishes. I don't know. Is it for me? Is it for me for the for having a good session of ClariTea Chat, or is it for Prosenjit? I'm just pulling everyone's legs. Um, Thanks, Nitin. Yes, good to see you as part of this session. We have Balihar Singh, Virk, Head IT, SPS Hospitals. Hey, thanks, Balihar, for joining us. We have some kind words coming from Yashu Sharma. Hi, this is Yashu from Ahmedabad. Thank you, Mr. Jagdish, for aligning such grateful insights, insightful sessions with industry veterans. Hey, thanks, Yashu, for the kind words. Like, these are comments like this which keep us motivated and going. And, I keep reaching out to my fellow CIOs to come here. Yes, I think your comments are worth the effort. We have Darshit from Mumbai. We have Prashant Yadav from Mumbai. Um, okay, so we have a question. The first question for you, Prasenjit. What challenges did the work from home culture engendered by the COVID crisis present to you and your industry? And what do you embrace about it? I just want to add to that question, Prasenjit. I think you are in an industry which is like hardcore brick and mortar, right?
Yes,
Environmental solutions, factory solutions. It's like the big iron, as we call it, right? So I think this question is much more relevant. So go ahead.
absolutely. I mean, not only is it a question for others, it was a question for ourselves. Because I remember beginning of March 2020, um, we were all gathered, our executive committee, and we were discussing exactly the same thing, that we are a heavy engineering, hardcore manufacturing organization. We cannot work from home. And 20 days later, we were doing business, we were taking out our P&L, our balance sheets, we were closing our accounts, we were doing all sorts of things remotely. I will not say that it was an instant success, but we, all of us, learned over a period of time. However, what really helped was that we had certain tools already. For example, we had our VPNs and our Citrixes in place. We had our Microsoft Teams in place. We had quite a few systems which were already hosted in the cloud. We already had authentication mechanisms for various systems that were securely, we could securely access them. It was basically, the systems were more or less in place. I would not say 100%, but they were in place quite a lot. It was also a lot to do with the mindset. And it was not only the mindset of us inside the organization, but it was also the mindset of our customers. So, since you also mentioned it, I mean, not only are we in this kind of a hardcore manufacturing and engineering area, but even our customers are from that area. So, they feel extremely comfortable when you are in front of them, when the work, the commissioning is happening at the site. But what this pandemic taught us, both our customers as well as us, is that there is a world of possibility even remotely. And I think we learned it together. I will not say we learned it the hard way, but we learned many things in unison. We started servicing, we started commissioning, we started doing so many other things remotely. We started guiding our customers when there was a problem over Teams, over remote mechanisms of how to set it correct. So I think slowly over the next 1.5 2 years, we perfected this to an extent that now, whether it is physical, whether it is remote, whether it is hybrid, we as an organization are ready. And not only are we ready, in fact, the next wave of digital strategy that we are going to create is also going to be heavily oriented towards working from anywhere, delivering from anywhere, measuring outcomes irrespective of the place of delivery. So I think this is a mind shift that is happening all across all the industries, and it is equally true for our industry.
No, absolutely. And I think, a few takeaways, as I paraphrase your responses, Prasenjit, is we were all in it together. So it was not like, I want to do it, but my customers don't want to do it, or my employees don't want to do it. I think we were all forced into a situation where, you know, it was everyone's problem, not just my problem or your problem. And therefore, I think, that was a big, magnet to align everyone to find new ways of working and not really to fight with each other, but to find solutions together. And I think, even in normal times, that's a good attitude to have, is to create that magnet of, common cause, and align with each other. But yeah, as you are, but another thing that I picked up from what you said, Prasenjit, is that probably it was not so much of a disruption for you, but it's about doing the right things, doing the right things, investing in the right places. Like, for example, investing in security, investing in collaboration, like teams, etc., etc., and people who had done, the basic necessities or the hygiene stuff of, giving a certain amount of employee experience, or certain basics of, running their technology operations. They could still manage it much better. But people who had cut corners on IT, they really face challenges, right?
In fact, that is absolutely right, Jagdish. I mean, if infrastructural and the IT security backbones are not in place, it means the basic foundation of a building is weak. Then you really can't build digital towers on top. In fact,
Absolutely.
just a very small informational nugget here. I think in the January, February of 2020, we were really wondering that how we can improve the working of teams, Citrixes, etc. in the organization. And I think 6 months down the line, somewhere around July or August, Microsoft came back and told us that we are one of the leaders in the Teams utilization across the manufacturing industry segment. That means we already had the tools, but we were really waiting for that kind of an catalyst that came in the shape of pandemic for us to move from one gear to a completely different gear.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you, I know, Prasenji, you were not there by that time, but we went on. I brought Microsoft Office 365 to Tata Motors, I think way back in 2014. And at that time, we had lots of naysayers, like, saying that, why do you need this? Like, this is more like a luxury. And I remember after the pandemic, whenever I talk to anyone in Tata Motors, people would say, Jagdish, what you did, what no one understood by that time, and they thought that it's a luxury, is actually saving our lives today. So yeah, it's actually, doing the right things, being able to see, a little ahead. Well, whenever what we did, whenever we did, it was actually more to, an acknowledgement of the fact that, there's enough connectivity available, there are enough devices available, and all we need to do to bring out the real productivity of people is to, like, just align to that reality. But that kind of became the savior later on. Okay, so let me move ahead, Prasenjit. Again, I can see a lot of audience interaction here, so let me just respect that. So Praveen Akolkar is saying, hi both, thank you for sharing your journey. Always pleasure to be part of Clarity sessions. Hey, thanks Praveen. Thanks for being part of Clarity Chats. Yes, we have our good old friend Amarinder, who attends the majority of our Clarity Chats. He's saying, Prosenjit Sengupta, I had a similar incident between two SPUs and two locations after all was done for one side. Story for another day. Great to be here. Hey, thanks, Amrinder. Yeah, we should talk about it someday. Maybe my next AMA session, come on the show and talk about this. Vinay, take a note of it. So we have LinkedIn user here, most likely Sats from Texas. I don't know. It can be Mr. Vijay Sethi also. Both of them, they have some security setting which doesn't show their names. Okay, so we have a question from Yashu Sharma, Prasenjit, who says, what are those areas which ideally a CDO or CIO always looking forward to improve whenever you work at any organization?
I think there's only one answer that I can give you, two words rather: business outcomes. That's it. I think our biggest stakeholder or the existence of the technology function is being an enabler for business, which in turn are the enablers for the customers. So I think if you really want to drive down, it is only look for the outcomes which are customer oriented, which are business oriented, because that is what keeps the business relevant, and technology is the enabler to make that business relevant. So I think that's that's what I would
Absolutely. No, no.
say.
I mean, I think you. It just shows that you spend a lot of time in business, Prasenjit, and you know how stark that reality is, and you know how also many times absent that reality is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
True,
So
true.
I still have many questions. I hope we'll be able to take it, Prasenjit. But let me come back to my questions for you. I think. Okay. So here is the next question. Okay, so Prasenjit, one important part of the learning is experiential, right? You took up the challenges without much preparation, but executed it successfully. That too with an informal hierarchy, or what you call as a mesh, mesh organization structure. So yeah, talk us through it, like how you became an expert at doing this, and what experiences helped you there.
I don't know whether I've become an expert or not, but yes, I have faced quite a few such instances. I mean, Jagdish, the CRM DMS project itself was an example of a completely meshed organization structure, right? I mean, I forget the count of the organizations who were involved. There was Tata Motors, Tata Technologies, or Oracle, IBM, CMC, TCS, quality kiosk. I lose count. I think it would be 10, 12, 15 partners all working towards a common goal. And I think it is also, or not only that, but even within these teams, there were people who were youngsters, people who were experienced, people who were having a technology background, people who were having a business background. So I think it was not only a mesh of organizations and partners, it was also a mesh of experience. And I think in this kind of a structure, the only thing or the only way in which a person can create influence is by ensuring that we are all aligned to a common vision. And how are we going to ensure that the outcomes that I just talked about are oriented towards the stakeholders? So, do we really know our stakeholders? Do we really know the outcomes that we are driving for the stakeholders? And then, whether if these two things are clear, how we are organized and aligned internally within so many partners and vendors and everybody else in a way which is working seamlessly to deliver those outcomes. I think a very similar story I also found in Volkswagen. So I told you, right, that I was also responsible for the Asia Pacific market, and there was a very close collaboration with also the headquarters. And when I say headquarters, I am not only meaning the Volkswagen headquarters, but there was also the group headquarters of Volkswagen Group, the Audi headquarters, etc. And of course there were internally we used to have, I mean, different brands, different factories, and there were multiple levels of stakeholders involved. And of course there were numerous numbers of partners and service providers also involved. So I think this was also a very clear example and an area where I could see that how do you analyze, how do you deliver, how do you monitor, how do you govern. I think these are the basic tenets, the basic principles of governances when you have got multi-stakeholder, multi-portfolio, multi-supplier scenarios. And I think these are the things that really hold you to those vision and the direction for our delivery.
Absolutely. So I think a few takeaways. One is like common cause. One is to not let the organizational complexities and various other transactional dynamics come in the way of driving your common cause. I think that cause needs to be strengthened, communicated, and I think we did used to do that quite a lot in terms of being absolutely focused on making that user at the dealership, enabling that guy and supporting that guy, and making sure that he has got all the tools and conveniences to interact with the customer, and that drove everyone together, where it's TTL, CMC, TBSS, etc., etc. And I think you did mention governance, which is a great discussion point, Prosenjit, because when you have multiple stakeholders, multiple partners, I think the only way to align them and take decisions in an inclusive manner is for everyone to come together from time to time and take those decisions which balance out everyone's you can say concerns or everyone's interests, but without really taking an eye of outcomes, right? So, Prasenjit, I mean, I have a follow-up question on that. Looks like, and I know you are good at dealing with people. Okay, so what are the two, three principles in your people interactions and relationships that you follow? And what's your, I mean, sometimes I ask people, especially when I used to recruit people, I used to ask them a very open, single question, which I can ask you. What is your people philosophy?
I really don't know whether there's a kind of philosophy or not. But one thing that I definitely try to do is separate out the personal and the professional side, even in the office environment. So, for example, there can be really, as I told you, really experienced people in their 50s who have seen the world. And when I joined, for example, when I joined CRM, I was what? I was, I think, 32. So, how do you deal with people who are in their 50s and who have seen a lot more of the world than you have? Or how do you deal with people who are completely technology oriented, like, I don't know what, like DBAs or like coders or like testers? How do you talk to them? Or, for example, how do you talk to people who are functional experts or who are business process experts? So I think there is a, you need to wear a lot of hats. But one thing is very sure. I mean, there has to be a professional side and there has to be a personal side. And when we are looking at profession, we are not looking at age, we are not looking at experience, we are not even looking at background. But as we discussed, we are looking at the outcomes and what needs to be done to reach those outcomes. But at the same time, it cannot be so cut and dry that you are only talking profession. So there has to be a personal side of the story also. And that is where the motivations come in. What motivates different kinds of people? And another thing that comes in along with it is celebration. Do we have small little targets? Do we celebrate when we are reaching those targets? Do we come in a huddle and understand if we have not met those targets? Do we have an open atmosphere and open environment where people can really talk their minds and really say that what went right and what did not go right? Do people feel that the environment that they are working in is not claustrophobic, but it is kind of a learning environment? Can, and I think these are those principles, you can say principles, you can ways of working. But I think these have at least helped me um, to deliver, because at the end of the day, any manager, any leader is only as so good as the people with whom that person is working. There is no delivery that happens single handedly. Everything is team oriented, everything is delivered by the team. The only thing is that, does the team have a common purpose? Does the team understand when things have not gone right and what to do? Or the team knows that this is a time for celebration when things have gone right and everybody pats everybody's back? I think these are the things that keeps the environment lively and interesting. I think you are on mute, Jagdish.
Where I am, I think there's some team building activity going on, and there's a lot of noise in the background. So I just decided to go on mute. But Prasenjit, I was saying that that was $1 million answer given in, like, such a simple manner. So let me paraphrase it, just for impact. I think very, very important, and it happened with me also that, you are young, and then, you're a young, bright leader, and you are now asked to manage, people who are much more experienced, people who are much more diverse in their capabilities. And that's where I find the $1 million answer, that keep the personal and professional aspects aside. When you're a professional, deal with a professional as an equal or as a superior, you know, or feel free to question, feel free to challenge, and all of that. That's like purely professional. But you have to balance it with personal touch, which is, as you get out of the conference room, you know, if you have pulled up somebody, just apologize, or like, just bring out, like, take people out for a tea or coffee. It's like balancing, like, push somewhere, you alleviate somewhere else, and all of that. And I think that's something that I also learned. Uh, the other thing that you talked about is very, very importantly is about culture. You know, when you say, open environment, honest environment, you can honestly, everyone can be honest about their opinions, like, what's working, what's not working. And I think this is, so what you said about, honest opinions, not claustrophobic, people love to come have discussion, etc. It tells a lot about the culture that you're building, which is, honest, open, learning environment. And that acknowledgement that, it's the team that drives your performance, and not the other way around, that you're trying to drive the performance of your team. And I think if you do the second thing, that is what builds that claustrophobia that you were talking about, right? Yeah. So Prasenjit, I think we are, like, in the last leg of our discussion. So let me finish my questions and see if I can take some audience questions. But I hope you're okay to go a little longer, right?
I'm okay.
Okay, okay, fair enough. So we'll take some liberties with our audience. We do it whenever there's a powerful conversation going on. They are really, generous with their time to stay a little bit longer as well. So, Prasenjit, what you have done couldn't have been done without collaborating, with business or with technology partners, especially with technology partners. Because, one of the things we talk about is that there's asymmetry of talent. 95% talent is on the partner side. And I see in your story that, you have been very good at leveraging partners to kind of, drive outcomes, drive the agendas, and drive, what you want to drive. So how do you do that? Like, what are a couple of principles you follow to make that happen? I mean, just talk about some experiences where you leveraged your partners to, you know, to strengthen the agenda.
I think what you said is very right. In technology areas, you have to be partner driven, and I mean, as you said, 95% of the delivery is going to be done by the partners, which also brings to the point that if the internal team is not skilled enough or not competent enough, then they will not be able to deliver, drive the outcomes from the partners. In fact, I have seen so many examples where the same suppliers, the same partners have different outcomes for different companies. The only reason was that the internal technology team of that organization was not capable to extract the maximum out of the partners. And that is where it becomes so important to also be learned. I will not say really skilled, but learned about the technologies that we are going to use. And this is, Jagdish, I can point blank say, has a lot to do with the grinding that I actually got in CRM and DMS under you. I mean, the I mean, just to quote an example, I mean, I was sent to that 3 weeks Oracle session, right? That training session, and I
Yes.
was at that time wondering that why am I even learning Siebel or Oracle and DMS, and what is the point of that? I am not going to code. But later on, I actually understood that it is extremely important to understand that what the partners are doing. So I think that becomes very, very important, not only in this case, for every single case, that the in-house IT team needs to understand the services that they are outsourcing. Otherwise, the quality of outcomes is going to differ quite a lot. However, once you build that rapport, once you are able to build that trust and that delivery prowess, then I think you are able to really deliver I mean, very, very well. I mean, again, so many examples for so many technologies in CRM, so many examples in Volkswagen. In fact, because of Volkswagen, I mean, the kind of technology experience and the expertise that we try to show, we were able to get the ownership of building dealer management systems within the APAC region. We built the SAP HANA system again in India without going to the headquarters. Even in Thermax, we are doing so many things which are partner leveraged. But at the same time, I mean, we are the delivery is being done by people who are also internally skilled and competent to handle the suppliers and the vendors. So I think it goes without saying, Jagdish, I think this is the most important thing that we need to do is train our people in the technologies that are going to be implemented before we outsource it. Outsourcing is like in kinds of greater expertise or helping hands, but it cannot be completely outsourced without an iota of knowledge internally. I think that is disaster.
Absolutely, 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 Prosenjit. I remember we had almost, created a principle, internal principle that whenever we get a new technology, we are first going to train everyone, including formal training for partners as well as for our own people who are going to manage it. Yeah, because it's like otherwise it becomes like driving a Porsche, when you have learned to drive a Maruti.
Absolutely.
That's dangerous actually sometimes, or you're not really leveraging the full capability. And I remember that 3 week course. It was actually a repeat performance because when I joined CRM, one of the first things we did was like I think 7 of us went for that core consultancy course or
Mm.
CCC, um, um, in Noida, and that really helped us understand not just the capabilities of the technology, but the limitations of the technology, and therefore we had far more meaningful discussions and far more empathetic discussions with our partner. And when you came in, I was keen that you go through the same experience, and that helped. Yeah, absolutely. So Prasenjit,
But
let's.
it works both ways, Jagdish, just making a point. Since you are from business, I was from business, we need to understand technology. Similarly, people who are from technology need to get into such trainings and such experiences in the business.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It happens, it's needed both ways.
I fully agree with you. Fully agree with you. It has to be done both ways. Yes, absolutely. So, Prasenjit, my next question before I take a few more, audience questions to you. This was like, what we talked really early, and I was like, oh my God, did I really push Prasenjit so hard? So, you got an early lesson in your career to keep a work-life balance. You've been practicing it while fighting with all odds. So please share a few examples of how you're managing it, how you're setting an example for your team. Yeah, tell us some instances where you've had a conflict between work-life balance and how you're managing it, or how you managed it.
Yeah, I think that period, 2006 when I joined CRM till 2012 when I left, I don't know, it was like 10, 11, 12 hour days for me. Um,
Longer. You're being generous. It was longer.
it was longer maybe, but I missed those. And that was, my daughter was born in 2003. So those were also the golden years that I actually could not spend time with my daughter. So I think that was also a wake up call for me. And I think ever since, I have definitely tried to maintain a work life balance. And when I say work life balance, I am actually talking about not only the timings, but I'm also talking about the discipline, the punctuality, uh, really trying to deliver things on time without unnecessarily stretching on hours. And I think that is possible when you develop a team which is also responsible and equally capable to take it forward. So I think these are the things that I have definitely followed. Um, I don't start my meetings before 9:30 or 10, because I do appreciate that every day people need some time to put their day and their tasks in order. And there is nothing, no better time than the morning. Also, I never try to keep my meetings beyond 5:30 p.m, because again after that, if there are certain closing things that needs to be done, people need to be given that time. It's not that it's done 100% of the time and it's done always. There are always emergencies, but I would like to leave the 12 hour and all those things for emergency situations only. uh, I mean, even in terms of, I don't know what, I mean, calls, etc. I really don't encourage calls unnecessarily beyond the working hours, because what happens is then you miss out on really the critical topics. Because in case somebody is calling you in the evening, late evening, at night, you should know that that is really an urgent and a critical topic. Otherwise, if it is getting mixed up with everything else, then you really don't understand what is important and what is critical and what is just can be postponed to the next working day. And so,
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's a good one. So let me. So we are towards the fag end of the chat. Great interaction so far, Prosenjit, and thanks for being very crisp. Now, I'll take some audience questions as well. But just after this, we are going to go for the rapid fire round, and I invite the audience to ask any rapid fire questions to Prosenjit. These are questions that can be answered in one line, one or two lines. Sort of, those curiosities that you have, like, who's your role model, what's the best book you've read, who's your favorite film star, etc., etc. Um, so let me, so Prasenjit, I mean, since we are kind of towards the end of the hour, I would request you to um, be crisp about the other questions as well. They are not per se rapid fire, but if you can be rapid fire about them, okay? So let me start. Where did we leave off? Okay. So yes, coming from Amrinder, and again, very important for the kind of organization you work in, Prasenjit, the ESG, okay, the carbon footprint and everything. So how can CIOs play a significant role in achieving their company's ESG goals, especially sustainability?
I mean, if it's a rapid fire, I don't know whether I can answer in one line, but
No problem. Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
no, but I think what we are talking about ESG is getting ingrained not only in our industry but across, because that is also the directive of the government that it needs to be part and parcel of the annual reports about how we are monitoring and how we are controlling, how we are improving. And any process that we want to monitor and improve, there is an automation around it in terms of capturing the data and improving it over a period of time. It again starts with process. It's all about, I mean, you can automate to no end. You have to understand where to start, where to end. You can actually start capturing it and put it on a dashboard and call it automation, or you can go the whole hog and put in sensors at different places, I mean, at different positions where there is an emission which is happening, or where there is a safety issue which might happen, and then there might be an automated and a digital trigger to understand, capture it, give prompts for those instances not to happen, and then build it into that entire process value chain and then present it. I mean, you can go to any length of automation and digitalization around there. And I think this entire automation piece is where the CIO or the CDO needs to play a role.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, but it starts from capturing the data, making sense out of it, and not just capturing and dashboarding it, but also drive some meaningful action triggers out of it. Great response, Prosenjit, there. Now, I have another question here from Praveen. He says, as a CIO, sometimes you need to handle conflicting opinions coming from board members with regard to tech, business objectives, etc. How do you manage that? If you can share one such incident, if possible.
I don't know if there's any example which is coming to mind, but normally what we do is um, everything, and it's not only the board, it can be the senior management, it can be anywhere across the business as well. Is you have to weigh it in terms of the return on investment. What is investment? Investment can be in terms of people, in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of the technology that you are going to add in case you have to add new technologies. So you need to understand what it is important for. And when I say returns, the returns can be monetary or the returns can also be qualitative. For example, the question before this, when we are talking about ESG, how do you put a value in terms of the safety of an person? How do you put a value on maybe an incorrect process? I think there are certain areas like quality, like safety, where you can't put in really a dollar number, but they are equally important. So I think you have to weigh the return and the investment, and then you can make a judicious priority out of all the things that you need to do. And it can be prioritization or it can also be handling conflicting decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So I just want to acknowledge Satya coming here from Texas. Thank you, Satya. I sort of knew that you will be there when I conjectured that, oh, this may be Satya. Okay, there was there's another question, and maybe Prasenjit, if it is already answered in your last one, it's okay. I see, how do you address conflicts with respect to deliverables from multiple vendors' competencies? It is often seen that each competency draws its own boundaries, which at times lead to white spaces and delays in the overall program. I've seen leaders being labeled as micromanagers when they try to sort things out by mandates.
I mean, this is going to remain, everybody is going to specialize in their areas. And unfortunately, it is going to be the job of the IT team of the organizations to stitch the entire story. And at the end of it, you can again get help in terms of automations, because I know there might be areas where the boundary is server, boundary is network, boundary is application, whose fault it is, and then there are systems that stitches it together and says that this is where the packet drop was. So I think there can be a technical solution around it. There can be a human solution around it. There can be a team solution around it. But ultimately, the people, the owners, the custodians of technology for the organization, which is the IT team, has to own it up and find these answers.
Okay, so I'll paraphrase it nicely. I mean, that's why you require the IT team. Okay. So now, well, some rapid fire questions have started from the audience, so let me take them first. So Satya is asking, what's your most impactful book?
Most impactful book. I have read so many books. I don't. Right.
Maybe
Maybe I will talk.
anything top
Maybe
of
I'll
your
talk about the Godfather, and I will just talk about one instance in the Godfather. I think there was one person, I forget the names, but there was one consigliere in The Godfather who was basically, you can say, the secretary, the assistant, the executive assistant for the Don for many, many years. But when Michael Corleone took over, he changed that person. And he said there is a consigliere for peacetime and there is a consigliere for wartime. And that is where I think maybe I will push it into a different area and say we also hear about two speed its which is becoming very important today. There is a vertical for operations and sustenance, and there is a vertical for digitalization, transformation, and agility, and you cannot have the same person leading the two. So I think if you really ask me, that has been my most impactful book, and that is the corollary to basically also the world. my career, my professional world.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a strategy and there's a set of people for peacetime and for wartime. And I agree with you. Like you require different mindsets. For let's say customer facing, product facing, technology solutions, and you need something different for your for sustaining the enterprise. For growing the enterprise, for sustaining the enterprise. Okay, another rapid fire from audience. The last one at that, Nitin Ingoley is asking, which experience was enriching, TML or Volkswagen?
VW wouldn't have happened without TML. Thermax wouldn't have happened without TML and VW. TML wouldn't have happened without my education. My education wouldn't have happened without my teachers. I mean,
Okay, got the
it's
answer.
so connected.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I mean, life is not like something that you can park in different terms. I think things are interrelated, and some of these questions are not that. I mean, they're not that relevant, but of course, they are curiosities. So, okay, now let me come to my rapid fire question. So, Prasenjit, when you were still learning the ropes in 2007, I vanished for a month to Kailash Mansarovar, and I kind of, like things just fell into your lap whether you wanted it or not. But my the absence for 1 month from me, what was your biggest learning that came out of it?
I think after you came back 1.5 months, there were certain discussions that we had, that certain decisions were not taken, etc. And the first thing that I also understood, or rather realized, was that I felt that I was not empowered, and that is a problem that happens when there is no formal structure there. And in CRM, when we are talking about kind of a meshed structure, I think that was something that was, it was kind of a story of everybody, somebody, anybody, nobody kind of a thing. But I think what also it gave me a learning is more informal the structure, the more formal it is required to have, role definitions, boundary conditions, decision matrices. All these things need to be more formal when the structure is informal. Otherwise, it happens that everybody thinks that it is somebody else's job, and then ultimately nobody really takes that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I drew many lessons from that experience. That, oh my God, I should have handed over authority much more formally to Prasenjit. That was my learning from our
Because that
interaction.
was never a problem in 2009 when it formally happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I think that was the difference.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. What is your view on an IT or digital roadmap, especially with the speed that technology is changing? Are these IT or digital roadmaps really relevant?
It is extremely important to have Jagdish, but it has to be kind of a living document, which means that you have to revisit it every so often. Now, what is that frequency might depend from one company to another company. Just to give an example from my current organization, we developed a digital roadmap in 2018-19, and now in 2022, with the pandemic behind us, with a lot of automation already behind us, we are revisiting the roadmap, that how we can leverage new technologies, how can we build upon what we have already done, and how can we leverage the structure that we have to go out into the market, customer facing, dealer facing, other stakeholder facing, new business scenarios, etc. So I think at every point in time we need to question what is the relevance of it, and as I mentioned, it needs to move and transition from one phase to another.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Prasenjit, my next question is, and I'll vanish for a moment from camera because I need to charge my phone, which I'm using as a hotspot. But yeah, you continue answering the question. So, what was the toughest moment around punctuality or time in your professional life? While we talked about it, maybe one of the toughest moments for you.
Regarding punctuality, I don't know whether it was the toughest moment or not, because I mean, there was one instance that I want to just narrate here. I hadn't realized it at that point in time, but it was told to me by another colleague who was sitting there. It was my early days in Volkswagen, and there was this meeting that was scheduled with the managing director. I'd gone there. I waited for maybe 5-10 minutes. He was in another. The meeting was getting extended, so I told his assistant that I am going back and to let me know when he is done, and I will come over. So I think his meeting actually extended quite a bit more. I think more than an hour or so. And when his assistant's call came in, I was already in a meeting, in a discussion with some of my team members. And so when the call came, I took it, but I had put it on, I think, on the speaker or something. So my colleagues, they heard what was spoken. And when she said that he is free now and you can come, so I said that, yeah, fine. I am actually in a meeting with my teams. I will finish it off and I will come in half an hour if that is fine. So, and I think she said, fine, I will check and come back. And she came back and said, yes, you can come after half an hour. That's no problem. But what I did not realize, I mean, I did not even think that it was any particular thing that I am doing. But later on, my colleague said that you actually said no when the MD called you for the meeting. So I said, I really don't understand. I mean, when I went at the appointed time, he was busy in a meeting. Now I am in a meeting, and I mean, I hope he will understand. And that was really the point. I mean, he never made any mention of it. It was absolutely fine between us. He understood that at the appointed time he was busy. He also understood that when he was free, I was in a meeting, and it is only professional that I continue and complete what I am doing, and then go to him if when he is available. So I think, but it struck me that people look at it from so many different ways, and people really think that it is something that is taboo or that should not be done. But you see, what I feel is that if he is a professional and if I am professional, then I think these professional conflicts of time will be really understood and appreciated.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Prasenjit, this is such an important thing that we treat each other as professionals, regardless of the level differences or regardless of like he's more important. So I think the some of these things that break the discipline, they are self-made or self-inflicted rather than
Yeah.
coming from the environment. But I think that's a very important one. And it's, I must say that it is in people's discomfort zones to say no, or to sort of like assert their professionalism. But I think it pays off. It really puts you in a good light if you maintain your professionalism, and you don't bend your rules, right? Okay, so Prasenjit, another question, very interesting. A lot of us, who are sitting around, this session, including me, we are more like 10 to 9 people. Okay, so what is your advice to to 10 to 9 people?
See, my first thing is, as I said, if it has to be a 11-hour or a 12-hour day, I would prefer it should to start at 8 o'clock and finish at 7 rather than start at 10 and finish at 9. No, but I think jokes apart, I think 10 hour, 12 hour, 14 hours, 16 hours should be reserved only for emergencies and not for every day. We I don't. We are responsible for our company, that is good, but we are also responsible towards our family, and we have to divide it equally. I think according to me, this 12-hour, 14-hour period happens because of two reasons. Number one is a person having lack of confidence to delegate, which is a personal issue. Or number two, there is a lack of skills in the team where that person is not able to delegate, which is an environmental issue. So whether it is a personal issue or it is an environmental issue, I think it needs to be fixed. Otherwise, you see, at least I feel that if we don't do this delegation and put a governance around it, then burnout is imminent. I mean, nobody can continue at this pace, at this continued stretch without losing concentration and without burning out.
No, absolutely. I think two very important things. One is start early, finish early. Second is focus on family, and third is you have to make sure that you last long.
Exactly, it's
uh,
a marathon, not a 100-meter dash,
Marathon,
right?
not a 100-meter race. No, absolutely. So I have one. I'm kind of getting greedy, Prasenjit, the way it is going. So I'll take one more question, and this is audience question from Pramod. So he says that do you find startup companies relevant and useful in your digital transformation journey and partner ecosystem, since many large enterprises have reservation? Let me see. I think the simple answer to it is yes. But let me rephrase that question a little bit to bring out what Pramod wants here, Prasenjit. Um, so, what are one or two things that startups can do better in terms of their engagements with large customers?
I think what they bring on the table is an amazing amount of energy and flexibility. You see, what startups do is they pinpoint their entire idea on a problem statement, and then they build a solution around that problem statement. And they are, since they are novices in this area, and they are very, newcomers, they are trying to experiment in many ways, in with many solutions, to really hit the nail on the head. And that is where the startups really bring value. They have, and I think that is where I have complete confidence that even large organizations would benefit tremendously if we partner with them. See, they lack maybe structure, they lack maybe deep pockets, but they have ideas, they have flexibility, and they have a lot of energy and passion that they bring into their solution. And if you marry their passion and their flexibility with the structure and the deep pockets of an organization that is able to invest in them, in their ideas, I think you have a winning solution. And this is exactly what we have already started doing in Thermax. And we are actually, for all our most of our critical key initiatives, one or two of our key initiatives, which is around IoT, which is around other new age technologies, we are actually looking at how do we partner with startups, how we can, you know, how we can build a symbiotic relationship where where the startups are also benefiting and we as an organization are all benefiting, because ultimately both of us are working towards the benefit of our customers. So I think that is what it is. Why is it important?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And you have to look at startups in a very selfish manner, that they can bring a lot of stuff on the table which you cannot bring in, or which your large partners cannot bring in, which is flexibility, agility, energy, and all of that. Yes. So great one. Again, I'm getting greedy, so I'll take this one is the last question. And this is from another dear friend, Manish Gupta. But this one is the SAP Manish Gupta. So Manish is asking, how would you rate the transformation projects that India INC undertakes as compared to the global countries in terms of outcomes and expectations? How can India INC improve in these transformations?
One difference that I have seen in my work in Volkswagen Group, which is a completely, you can say, out and out MNC, and Indian organizations, is that the amount of time which is spent in the beginning of the project versus the end of the project. Since the MNCs spend a lot of time in the beginning of the project to plan out the entire project, there's a very high probability that there will be l- less number of miss outs on the timelines and the milestones as you progress in the project. However, the moment you are spending lesser time in the beginning of the project in defining your team, defining the scope, defining the risks, how do you manage the risks? How do you manage the budgets? From where the budgets are going to come in, from where the business teams are going to come in. I think you are calling for an extension for each intermediate step, and that becomes very important. And to my mind, that was the key differentiator between the global working environment and an Indian working environment.
I think, Prasenjit, you are so right. And I mean, where I see the biggest, lapse, or you can say, biggest lack of, putting your money where your mouth is in terms of resources. I think and this is something that our friend Manish Gupta said. Other Manish Gupta said in his ClariTea Chat is that it's one of the acid tests. Are you ready to bring the best people on board full time into the project? That team building. Are you able to extract the best team from their full time jobs and dedicate them on the project, because that's one of the biggest success factors. But that's a
Absolutely.
great, yeah, that's a great answer, Prasenjit. You want to say something else?
No, no, I am that. And what I was saying is that structuring the team upfront before the start of the project actually defines whether the project is going to be successful or not.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I think that's a great chat, and I think we have overshot our time really luxuriously, Prosenjit. And I don't know how you're going to view this. A disciplined person like you is going to view this, but I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
And I've been putting you on a spot so many times, and the audience also. So it's your time to put me on spot. So ask me your revenge question.
Uh, okay. So, see, you have spent a long time of your career in Mumbai, in Bangalore. Both of them are so busy cities, right? And now you're spending your time on the outskirts of Pune in a complex where you have got a golf golf link inside your complex. So, how do you feel? I mean, how do you compare these two different, completely different kinds of lives?
Yeah. So, Prasenjit, good question. But I think if pandemic wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have moved to Pune. Okay. So the whole model that I had thought in my mind, as I was coming out of corporates, was that I'll be in Mumbai. Mumbai is the place where most of the decision makers are, and that's where you have all the meetings and everything. And but then pandemic hit, and wherever you are, the first 5 months I was running my operations out of Bangalore, even though most of my customers were like in India or in US, and kind of figured out that even post pandemic, even as the world opens up, it's not going to be, at least my model is going to remain the same, which is advisory. And we took a call. We maintained establishment in Mumbai as well as Pune, and then we found that um, whenever on the first opportunity we were rushing back to Pune, and then we said, okay, why not we put our bets here? But yes, it's not easy because there are lots of withdrawal symptoms I have. Uh, Mumbai being Mumbai, everything is at a stone's throw, and here you have to depend on e-commerce. But I think it's also let me end this by saying that you don't get everything. I mean, you can't get the best of everything, so it has to be a balanced package. Yes, Mumbai is a different package. This is a different package, and I'm learning to enjoy it, liking it, primarily because the quality of air is good. I can play golf every day. Uh, we still have a lot of like-minded people around. I'm able to contribute to the golfing community here, and yeah, it doesn't. So far, it hasn't affected my work. So
Great.
uh, learning a new way of life, more greener. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you, Prasenjit,
Thank you.
for coming on the show, and thank you all our audience for attending and engaging and being with us for almost an hour and a half now. And for all of you who are watching the recording, thank you as well. And now I'll release the rest of the weekend to all of you, as well as Prosenjit. Please enjoy your family time. And thank you, Prosenjit, for joining me on ClariTea Chat today. It
The
was such a
pleasure has
pleasure
been mine.
and
The
energetic
pleasure
session.
has been mine.
Thank you, Prosenjit. And we will be back next Saturday, yes, 27th August, and we'll be bringing a topic which is so very relevant for IT, which is communication. And I'll be bringing an expert from US with me. Watch out, it's going to be a great chat next week. Till then, goodbye and have a great weekend. And thank you, Prasenjit,
Bye.
once again.